Committee. I'm co-chair with Lane Isaacs, and most of you know us because we just put a lot of programs together. We'd like everybody to be on mute, please. I'm going to do a little ad for upcoming programs, but we're very happy to have Chef Alex here with us today, brought to us via Sherry Meyer, who is his cousin, niece, aunt. Anyway, Sherry will introduce herself and her relationship with him. So just one advertisement for an upcoming program on Wednesday, February 17th. Our next program is going to be Hamantaschen baking with Susan Gross, and that's on a Wednesday night at 7:30. But for today, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry, and enjoy, everyone.
Thank you.
Sherry?
Hi, welcome. I'm glad to have us all together. I muted Alex's kitchen because it's an active kitchen and they're actually serving lunch there. So Alex will have to unmute himself as I finish speaking. We are recording today, so I just wanted everyone to know that. And I just wanted to introduce my nephew. I'm so proud of him. My son, William, is next to me here helping with the different things on my screen as I'm talking. Alex is a graduate of the Johnson & Wales University. His past experiences have included an internship with Daniel Boulud at Restaurant Daniel, working as a sous chef at the Black Bass in Lumberville, and serving as executive chef at the Yardley Inn, and now as executive chef at the Perch at the Peacock Inn. So I wanted to share from the insider's view my joy about Alex becoming a chef. There was one story that really stood out early on in his career when he was a student at Johnson & Wales. He was going on an interview for that internship with Jean-Francois at Daniel's, and he told me about how it went afterwards. He didn't know if he got the job yet. And he said, I got to his office and he asked me a question about why I became a chef or wanted to become a chef. And I said, well, my grandfather, Fred Edelman, whom some of you know, and my late mother, Linda Edelman, they introduced me to such great food by taking me out to all these fancy restaurants that inspired me to understand food at a different level. And I know that Fran Zeitler, my mamda, is very happy to continue that tradition. I was going to say that he went on to tell me about that interview, that he was asked to make something, and the chef said, do you prefer, he just said out of the blue, do you prefer fish or meat? And he said he picked the one he was going to do. I think he said fish. And he said, okay, you have 1 hour. And it was like he had to go down into a cellar that he had never seen before, filled with lots of things, and cook for the chef. So it must have gone pretty well because he got the gig. So Alex is going to speak now about his experience and cook for us a lovely list of different kinds of meals that could be used in different ways. It could be used with a milk meal or a meat meal, whatever suits your home. And he also would like me to tell you at the end of his talk that the GM from his restaurant, who started working right around when he was working, will chime in and perhaps also have some comments in the program. And towards the end of the talk, he's going to talk about the wine collection that the Peacock Inn has. So without further ado, Chef Alex, let's see if you can unmute yourself, because I think you are muted right now. I'm asking you to unmute.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah, you have to, okay, there, he's unmuted. Okay.
We're good?
Yeah, we're good, Alex. Go.
All right, thank you so much, Sherry, for the introduction. I appreciate everything you have to say. And thank you everyone for having me on and logging on for joining me today. That being said, let's have some fun. I'm here to share some of my experiences with you. I started cooking when I was 15 years old, going on about 14 years now. which makes me about 95 years old in chef years. So I've learned a lot throughout my time, and I'm continuing to learn more every day. And so my career started, you know, I was high school and got a job as a busboy, and salad person didn't show up one day, and they said, "You're on." And I've been in the kitchen ever since. Was fortunate enough to go to Johnson Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island. Within the time, I spent 2 years cooking for on Martha's Vineyard. My family was very happy to hear that I cooked for three presidents now, because Biden was there. So they were very happy to hear about that. And I've worked for Daniel Boulud, I've worked for Sean Brock, and a lot of people in between. And a lot of people invested in me, and I'm thankful for that. And here we are. So today I am going to not really teach you specific recipes, but more about, I guess, the broader spectrum of how I look at food and how you can apply that. Once you understand those elements, you can really apply them in many different ways of just how you look at food. So that sounds very confusing right now, but hopefully throughout this next hour or so, it kind of clarifies. So our first dish that I'm going to be cooking for you is charred cauliflower with a duck fat vinaigrette. So first and foremost, we have a cauliflower. This is the Romanesco cauliflower variety. It's very, very pretty. So with this dish, the first thing that I did was I cut the leaves off. Now, one thing about my style of cooking is I look at vegetables the same way you would, you know, butchering any kind of animal, in the sense that I try and use everything and understand, you know, like a cow, you wouldn't exactly cook a short rib the same way you would a filet mignon. So just understanding that there are different parts to the vegetables and figuring out how to cook each component separately and have it come together. So I'm taking off the leaves right now, and we are going to be putting those leaves aside and blanching them. And next, I'm just going to be trimming off the little edge and trimming that up once more. I take the cauliflower and I will do kind of like, I guess the popular thing now is cauliflower steak. Now, while you're doing this, there's going to be some on the edges that fall off. Don't worry about it. We will absolutely use all of them in different ways. You're going to end up with two kind of perfect center cut steaks, if you may, which are these guys right here, and then leave you with the end. So as you can see, we have our cauliflower parts right here. We have our leaves, and we have the stem. And the stem is actually one of my favorite parts as well. And we're just going to trim up the edges. And that's basically what I call butchering a cauliflower. Those are your different components. Now, just like I grew up watching cooking shows and the magic of television, we can transport this in time to our fully blanched version. Let me clean this up for you. So here we have our cauliflower steaks, just like I cut before, and we have the stems. Now, what I did was I blanched these in salted water. Now, if you don't know, blanching is just a method of dropping food in boiling water, cooking it at high heat, and then putting it immediately in an ice bath to shock it and stop. And that's just going to tenderize your food. When you blanch vegetables, you want to season it just like you would like pasta water to make sure it's nice and salty and seasoned. Now, two things when it comes to restaurant cooking or when I cook for people, you know, people are like, wow, that's really, really good. And in my mind, I'm like, I really didn't do much. But what I've learned throughout the years is two very simple things. First off is not overcooking food. you know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I hate cauliflower, or I hate Brussels sprouts. And what I've learned is, unfortunately, they grew up with, you know, their mother or their or aunt or grandparent just boiling the heck out of it, overcooking it, you know, a little bit of butter and salt, calling it a day. I don't like vegetables like that either. So when I cook for people and they're like, wow, I really didn't think I liked that, and now I like it, it brings me a lot of joy to hopefully teach them something. And it's most of the time because I just didn't overcook it, and it's nice and, as they say, al dente, which is, you know, a little bit hard cooked. The second is seasoning, which we'll get into in a sec. So we'll put this to the side. We're going to go ahead and make our duck fat vinaigrette. Now, I love using animal fats in my cooking, just as I try and use all the components of the vegetables without throwing it away. I look at animals in the same respect. I try and use, you know, bones for stock, fats for cooking, and things like that. So cooking with animal fats is something that's very dear to me. And I came up with this duck fat vinaigrette. So here I have a shallot, and I'm just going to peel it.
Hi, Alex. Someone in the chat is asking whether we can get a copy of these recipes from you at some point.
I think I can make that happen.
Sure.
I would love if anyone's interested in the recipes, come in and I'll give them to you personally. And not only that, there's a couple different things that you can see on the menu as well, of how exactly they turn out. But feel free, Sherry, to at the end I will give you my email address, and I will answer any single email questions, comments, response, advice. I'm here to help. So anyway, we have our shallots in here, and so there's just one shallot and 3 cloves of garlic. And we're going to put that in the blender along with our apple cider vinegar, which is hiding over here.
It's really interesting to see the inside of the kitchen since we've been inside the restaurant.
Yeah, I've worked in all different types of kitchens, and it's got everything I need. It's nice and cozy, and that's a trick. So anyway, we have our shallots, garlic, and apple cider vinegar. At this point, I'm just going to add some thyme, and I stripped this off the stem. Don't worry too much about having all the stems, you know, picked off. Depending on the time, some stems are super woody, in which case, yeah, you need to make sure of that. But if there's a little bit nice and tender, don't worry about it. We're blending it. I've worked with some dishes where you have to pick each individual leaf separately and garnish your food with that. In that application, it makes sense. But if you're making a vinaigrette, go ahead and, you know, do it a little roughly. Next, I have some seeds that I toasted off. We have coriander, cumin, fennel, and caraway. These are some of my favorite kind of earthy, late autumn spices. So we're just going to add that right to our mixture and blend that. So with that blending, I'm going to add a little bit of whole grain mustard. You can use whole grain or Dijon. That's going to give it some pop, and it's also going to act as an emulsifier, as a binder. And in there, I probably have about, I'd say, a cup of apple cider vinegar, maybe 2 tablespoons of mustard. And now I'm going to drizzle in a little bit of my duck fat. And with this vinaigrette, you have to use a blend of both duck fat and neutral oil so that it doesn't completely solidify. And I'm just looking, and I'm going to keep adding oil until it's a nice consistency that I want. As you add your oil, it's going to thicken up on you. And there's two things that's going to tell you you added enough oil. The first is the consistency, the viscosity, and the second is tasting it. So as I taste this right now, I haven't seasoned it, but what I'm looking for is a balance between fat and acid.
Someone is asking whether it matters what kind of cauliflower we use.
Absolutely not. Feel free to use cauliflower, anything you really want. It's a great vinaigrette to be used, super versatile. And you make one batch, throw it in your fridge, it'll last forever. So I'm gonna add a little bit more oil to this. And I guess the scary thing about vinaigrettes for most home cooks is, well, what if I break it? I encourage you to break many, many vinaigrettes because that's how you learn. All my line cooks, they ask me for help and stuff like that, and I go over and I'm able to smile because their mistakes I've made a million times, and the only reason why I know how to correct them is because I've made those mistakes. So vinaigrettes is one of those things that I want everyone to feel comfortable with, because there's no reason to buy store-bought vinaigrette. They're made with a lot of preservatives, and they're just not as delicious. So the water is just going to help emulsify it a little bit.
My French mother-in-law, Annie Meyer, would totally agree with you. She taught me how to make my first vinaigrette.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm getting a lot of questions about the duck fat. Can you first describe what you would use as a substitute if you don't have it or if you don't want to cook with meat? And then also, where would you purchase it?
Absolutely. So duck fat is, you can interchange it with anything you want. Once you start looking at food as components, whether it be your fat and acid, you will understand that once you're dealing with a fat, I mean, it could be duck fat, it could be olive oil, it could be sunflower oil, grapeseed oil, beef fat. There's minor differences, but it's all interchangeable, especially in this application. Now, I don't suggest using all animal fat or all olive oil because those are very flavorful, and it's going to overpower it. I suggest using, if you don't want to cook with any animal fat at all, sunflower oil and grapeseed oil are two of my favorite oils to use. You can use canola or vegetable, but I try and stay away because they're a little bit more processed.
And Alex, where do you purchase duck fat?
So duck fat you can buy at most specialty stores. They sell little little containers or little pail buckets a lot of times. I don't expect you to work with enough duck to save up skin and rendering it. But whether it be at your specialty grocery stores, if you're lucky enough to know a butcher, if they still exist anymore, they're always happy to work with customers about special orders. And also some online retailers such as D'Artagnan should be offering home services. One of my favorite purveyors that I work with as well is Baldor. And I know since the pandemic, they shifted gears by offering delivery to homes rather than exclusively restaurants. So if you aren't familiar with them, please check out Baldor. I've been working with them for a number of years, and just great products.
I can second that. We've been taking our food from Baldor the whole pandemic, and between them and Instacart, we're more than taken care of. They're a wonderful outfit. And they're not sponsoring the video. That's true. That's funny. Also, I wanted to say that if they ever make a mistake on your order, you get to keep what they mistakenly put in your order. And we've had some lovely mistakes.
Sorry, just bear with me. All right, so right now we're looking at our what we call mise en place, which is getting everything together for this dish. And as we gather our stuff, as we go, and what we're going to end up with is our vinaigrette, our blanched cauliflower stems, our blanched steaks, as we say, and I have a little bit of baby kale here as well, and that's going to help add adhesive, like bind to the vinaigrette when we make our dish. And this is a fun little side dish, whether you want to do just the sides or if you want to throw a piece of protein on it. When I cook, I look at what vegetables I'm going to use first, then look at what flavor profile, and protein is always last because it's so interchangeable. And if you eat vegetarian, like a lot of my family does, no protein needed. I think that this dish will stand on its own. All right, so I'm just going to season up these steaks with a little more salt and pepper. And we're going to do our cooking element. Can everyone see me and hear me? Hello?
Hear you.
Hello?
We're
Okay.
fine.
Beautiful.
We can hear you.
All right. So I love using cast iron. They hold heat extremely well. They can be a little bit heavy on the downside. But if you're trying to get a good sear on something, especially if you're not working with flames that get as high as these, cast iron is going to be your best bet at home. And you're looking at, I'd say, a 1/4 centimeter of oil on the bottom. You want enough that it's going to really kind of rise above the edges just a little bit to really get that crumb. And I have it on about medium-high heat right now. And I'm looking at my pan, and it's when I see the oil kind of ribbon a little bit and just a tad smoke come up, that's going to tell me it's ready. Now, you don't want to see a whole bunch of smoke come up. That's going to tell you got to start over. But you're really just looking at your pan, and it's going to sound corny, but really just connecting with the pan, connecting with the food, and gauging it.
Alex, I noticed how spick and span that stove is. I inherited an older commercial stove. Do you have any tricks of the trade for keeping it that beautiful?
Yeah, Sherry, you just got to talk to your line cooks at least once a week, and let them know to clean your stove a little bit more. No, I'm joking. Easy off.
I also would love that many burners when we're having Thanksgiving.
So we're looking for a nice mild bubbling, nothing too aggressive. We're looking for a nice golden brown rather than a very high heat hard sear. Now keep in mind, the thinner you cut really anything that you're about to sear, the higher the heat needs to be. So if I'm cooking something that has decent thickness like that, or if I'm cooking like we sell, 32-ounce dry aged bone-in ribeyes that are about that thick, you have a lot more leeway to caramelize it low and slow, rather than if I was cooking like a thin piece of fish. You need to have the heat much higher to get that nice sear before you ever cook it.
I didn't know that. Thank you for that tip. I'm sure we all are learning.
Yes, there are many, many variables to cooking, as you may know, which is tough because so many people ask me specifically. They're like, how long do I cook this for, and how, what temperature do I set my oven for? And those answers are, very difficult because there's just so many variables, to look at. There's just like in life, it's not a, one size fits all kind of thing. And again, and I stress this, I encourage this, the best way to become a good cook is to mess things up over and over again. And then look back and be like, okay, why did I mess it up? And there's nothing wrong with that.
One thing I've noticed over the years from cooks that I've learned from is that they take notes on the cooking and keep it in a journal so that they can look back and see different variations.
Absolutely. So the smaller pieces are going to cook and brown a little bit faster than the larger ones. So we're just watching each one, and it's going to pretty much tell you of when to flip it.
I'm definitely getting hungry watching you. I should have eaten before this started.
Well, that's the key to good food, is feeding hungry people. If they're full, It's like after we opened from COVID and everything like that, it was great. Made my job easy. People were kept inside their house for months. I could have served them McDonald's hamburgers and they would have been extremely happy about it. Now, of course, it's a little bit better than that, but it was nice to really make people's experiences, especially after dealing with COVID for so long and everything like that. When we finally opened up with outdoor dining and social distancing and stuff like that, when people were comfortable enough to come out, just the experience we were able to provide is really the reason why we do it.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about how it was when you were at the Yardley Inn when COVID hit? Because I know I was surprised about your activity there.
Absolutely. So it happened quickly. I look back at it as like one of those days that you'll never forget. You walk into work and you find out your business is being shut down, and I'd say the shock lasted maybe a day or two, and then myself and the general manager over there were just like, okay, it's go time, and we sat down and just go of brainstorming and figuring out what to do. Real quick to interrupt myself, some of the pieces are starting to get nice and crispy. That's what we're looking for. So we adjusted. That's what the restaurant industry has tried their best to do, is just adjust. So we really kind of set the standard in the area for takeout dining. I'd say it was about 2 days in, and then the third day when we were doing takeout dining, and they're fantastic over there at advertising and things like that. Within 3-4 days, we were just sold out of every single thing we were doing, and almost couldn't keep up with demand. And changed the menu to a more accommodating menu for takeout and family meals. And we were up and running at that point. By a week and a half in, 2 weeks, I was bringing some more staff back. We were selling chickens that we get from Bridgetown Farm over here, selling some of their eggs, meat packages, fish packages. So they really adjusted quickly. And at the Yardley Inn, that format it worked very well. It's been a little bit more difficult since my move over here at the Perch, just because I think fine dining has been affected in terms of economically the most out of COVID, because as people start to change their habits and stuff, the excess things are the first to go.
Yeah, we're getting a question about your curbside. Are you offering pickups for 1, 2, or 4 people like the Box Mediterra does? Is one of the questions.
No, so we pretty much stayed put to what we're doing in terms of the in-house dining. Now, one thing I did do, was prepare just in case things got shut down. It didn't, so some of those precautions that I was ready to step in and take didn't have to happen, which is nice because I'm able to keep more staff on at that point, which is very important to us. But what I did do was I took some of the items off the menu that wouldn't have traveled very well, and came up with some that would travel well into go boxes and things like that. So here I have some of the baby kale and some of the cauliflower stems. And we're just gonna make like a little salad. Dress it with some of the vinaigrette.
Now, when you're making a meal that has all the courses being made at the same time for various different types of dishes, what do you think about, like, in terms of your timing and trying to keep warm the people, the dishes that are, waiting for the other dish to be done? Like, what's some of the tricks?
The restaurant, as we say in the industry, it's a song and dance of just many, many different working parts. And that's a tough answer or tough question to answer just because of the amount of variables. But just like really anything else that you're trying to be successful at, preparation of just being prepared, preparing your staff, communicating, things like that. There's no clear-cut secret to it all. It's a grind every day in every service, and there's different things that go on. But as long as you're prepared, communicate, we make it happen.
So are there warmers that keep certain types of things warm for you, or?
Yeah, so these are warmers right over here. But the important thing is that my, our kitchen is going up at the same time. That means they're communicating on the line. It means that they're timing things right. If one person is just working their station and not looking at everything else, then they're going to be putting stuff up on that ticket while the other guy's still halfway through cooking. So it's really just, a great amount of teamwork that goes into it all. And now you just have a little fun with it. And you're basically just making a little composed side. And it's something so simple as, utilizing different parts of the cauliflower and a little bit of salad on top, and the duck fat vinaigrette, which, especially in our kitchen, is a byproduct of, previously having duck in and things like that. So it's really just cooking of stuff that's fresh, delicious, and, utilizing it. I've worked with nice ingredients, but you don't have to get truffles and foie gras in to make something delicious. To me, this takes more heart, more soul, and, more connection with the food than that, which is more fun to me. I'll be right back.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a little hungry. I just wanted to remind everyone, if they wanted to ask questions in the chat, I will funnel them to Alex as his spaces between what he's talking about.
Absolutely. And Sherry, let me know, how am I doing on timing? This is, I think, my first Zoom video. So you guys are trial and error right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, this is your first time. That's amazing. You're doing a beautiful job. It's 2:35 right now.
Beautiful.
I just want to give a shout out in between to my niece who has her birthday today, Alex's big sister, who also is a new mommy. So a shout out to Samantha.
Something like that. And when you're cooking this at home, you throw, some grilled chicken on that, or steak or any kind of protein, tofu, and you have yourself a pretty easy, inexpensive, and delicious quick meal.
Looks delicious, Alex.
Well, thank you.
What are you using for the garnish?
The garnish, I just have some pansy flowers in. My staff is always laughing at me because I have quite the array of garnishes and flowers on deck. And every time they go out, they're like, "Oh, more flowers, chef, more flowers," and that's their way of laughing at me. But sorry, pardon me.
Oh, kitchen humor.
Yes, that is the kitchen humor. But today's Sunday, it's snowy, so my flower selection is a little bit limited, and also, I want to do things that you are able to do at home as well. If I get in all these different kind of microgreens that you guys didn't have access to, it wouldn't be doing a service to the people that are joining us today. All right.
That was one of the mistakes of the Baldor last order. They sent me a huge box of microgreens, and I never really had them in my kitchen, but I'm very much enjoying that mistake.
Nice. Well, you could start an Instagram page, Sherry.
Alex, we're being asked by a congregant whether cauliflower stems were used in the dish you just made, or did you get rid of the stems?
The cauliflower stems were used in the dish. They were, what I did was I blanched it and then I sliced it up and added it in with the leaves.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One thing I have done before, especially in a cauliflower dish, was I saved the stem and I made a puree out of the stem. So I had 3 different components of the cauliflower, actually 4, which I took the florets and I shaved them very thin and sprinkled it right on top. So it had that raw crunch consistency to it as well. All right. So next we're going to do baby carrots with carrot top pesto, feta cheese, and puffed grains and seeds. So
before you start, someone asked about the tweezers that you were using to turn the cauliflower. They kind of look like big chopsticks. Can you show it to us? And does that have a special name?
So, pardon me?
Does that have a special name? Those?
So yeah, these are JB prints. I've been using them, I'd say about 5 years now. I also have a smaller variety as well, and they're available online. I don't know where my smaller one is right now, but they are available online at jbprints.com or Amazon. I remember I worked a couple jobs where they wouldn't let you use tongs. For whatever reason, when you start getting into some of the quote unquote fancier restaurants, there's like this taboo that tongs are amateur. Now, I'm not here to micromanage anyone. If you're more comfortable using tongs instead of tweezers, by all means. But some things have just been ingrained in me where these are basically like a third hand. I use them for a lot of things, and yet another thing that people make fun of me in kitchen humor for, but I'm comfortable with them. All right, let me grab another blender top for you. Sorry, I sent my staff home, so I gotta double up on this duty as well. Any questions at home right now, Sherry, I can answer while I'm just drying?
I just got a question to get the Baldor link. So I was looking it up for a second, so I haven't posted it yet, but I will.
Oh, beautiful.
What type of herbs and seasonings can be used at home to add flavor to everyday dishes?
Great question. So I was touching on before, when you start looking at food as components rather than like a recipe ingredients, I find a lot of my flavor comes from one of 3 different aspects. The first, we have spices, such as such as the spices that I use as the fennel seed, the coriander. You know, as you know, Sherry, your spice rack is quite extensive, which is a beautiful thing. But spices provide tons of different flavor that you can go in any different profile. And you know, by deciding what flavor profile you want to go with, you know, the second that you add something like cumin and cardamom, you know, you're thinking of like Indian or Thai. You know, so different spices assimilate different flavor profiles that you can easily make that vinaigrette, change the spices in it, and it'll, you know, have a same, you know, similar product, but a completely different flavor profile. So spices are the first thing that you get your flavor from. The second is going to be herbs, which we're cooking with right now. So here I have two technically herbs, but they're very neutral. So they're going to make up the bulk, the body of this pesto. So I have some carrot tops that I just actually bought these on my way in at Wegmans. So I can tell you, I could vouch for them. Wegmans has beautiful carrots with the carrot tops. Make sure when you buy that product, you're looking at the tops, you're looking for the freshness, and it's going to give you a nice sauce out of it. And the second that we're going to start with is parsley. And you know, just like I was explaining before, when you're blending herbs, as long as it's not like super stemmy or woody, don't feel like you need to pick every single individual leaf. You know, just like my other cooking, I encourage you to use as much of the plant as possible. Sometimes I'll even save the stems and cut them very thin, like chives, to put over a dish. So those are my first two herbs that I'm starting with. And then I'm going to be looking at some tarragon. And the tarragon, unlike the parsley and the carrot tops, that's going to be where a lot of my flavor is coming from. And if you could see, I used a lot more in terms of quantity of the parsley and the carrot top, probably looking at about a 4-to-1 ratio of neutral herbs to flavorful herbs. And the flavorful herbs, you could do basil, as in like a traditional pesto. You could do, I'm using tarragon right now. I've done lemon thyme, I've done lemon balm, which is one of my favorites, available in the late summer. So you're looking at this, and a pesto, as you, it's basically just a herb emulsification, herb sauce. And as you learn in cooking, every country has their version of basically the same thing. So, you know, Argentinian chimichurri, things like that, they're all very similar, just different flavor profiles. Your salsas using cilantro, you know, from some of your South American foods, all interchangeable, but herbs is where you're getting your flavor from. So like I said, you have spices and you have herbs. And then there's third, where you get a lot of your flavor from, is aromatics. And aromatics a lot of times are in the form of alliums, alliums being the onion family. So here we have our garlic and shallot. And garlic and shallot, a lot of, I'd say, like newer cooks, you know, thinking of it as something that's like very pungent and overpowering. And that's not necessarily the case. I use onions and garlic in so many dishes when I cook. And a lot of times it's not even prevalent or predominant. The best way I would say is you don't know it's there, but you would know if it's not. And the way you use them is going to dictate the flavor profile. So here I'm looking for something more like something with more pop. So I'm going to use fresh. But if I wanted something more mild, and I was going to cook like you know, classical French in terms of something that's like super savory and nuances and things like that, then cooking your aromatics are going to completely change the flavor profile. So sorry, before I add that in, I'm just going to cut it up just so it blends a little bit easier. It doesn't get caught up in your blender.
Someone is asking about pepper. They like, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's, I think, Talia cherry pepper, and they said that their source is out of it. Do you know of any sources that are selling it locally?
Interesting. So that name isn't ringing any bells, but it's overwhelming the amount of products that exist in our world. And I'm learning stuff new every day. So if you want, Sherry, to send me the name of that, the spelling, and I will look into it. I also encourage to check out Baldor to see. By the way, I don't work for them, I swear. I've just recommended from from someone who's just been working with them for a while, and I'm confident in them. But there's other sources as well. But yeah, I'll look into that. Absolutely.
I had a question about how long you can keep the blended vinaigrettes and sauces in your refrigerator. I know for a restaurant, you're going to serve it right away, but for us
Yeah.
at home, I know I keep my vinaigrettes, I make a lot all at once, and then I just keep it for the week or even longer. What is it? What's the maximum? How does it work?
There really is no maximum. You're not, as long as it's stored properly, you're not going to get any like bacterial growth or pathogens or things like that. What will happen over time is it will lose its pungency. So like a fresh vinaigrette, you're going to taste a lot of that pop. Over time, it's going to basically taste like Italian dressing that you bought off the shelf. I've had vinaigrettes in my fridge for really months, in my personal fridge and stuff like that, that I've used, especially pestos. I've made pestos in the summer and had them last, throughout the year. It's a way of preserving, especially when you're gardening and you end up with more basil than you know what to do with baking pesto, and you can even freeze that pesto. Is an excellent way to utilize everything that you grow in your garden without throwing anything out.
One trick I like to do is to use ice cube trays to put some of the extra stuff in the freezer. That way you have a little bit that's useful for your meal.
I have heard of people doing that. I haven't myself, but I use a lot of pesto when I have it on deck, so it doesn't really last long. Anyway, I'm sorry. We're going to get our pesto started. So all I'm doing is adding the herbs to the blender, and I'm adding just enough oil. I don't want to make like a herb boil. I'm looking for just enough to really have it catch. As you're seeing right now, the herbs aren't really catching. That really is telling me it's not actually blending. So I'm just gonna keep pressing it down and keep adding a little bit of oil, a little bit more at a time, until it kind of catches. And pesto is really all about personal preference, whether you want something very smooth, whether you want something very chunky, but you're just looking for something that doesn't have too much oil. It's not like soupy, but it's enough that it's going to make it into a spreadable sauce rather than just some crushed herbs at the bottom. So that's really the bulk of it, and at this point, you're just kind of seasoning it up. I'm gonna step over here and grab.
Hi, Alex. Another question about the food processor versus the blender and when to use which, and
Absolutely.
what you might recommend for home kitchens. Obviously, it's quite different.
So Vitamix, I swear by. They're not cheap, but they are a great product. Commercial-wise, I have to say that I've worked with Vitamixes that take a beating, but you definitely want to take care of it. It's one of, I think a good blender, a good Vitamix is the most important tool to have in the kitchen when it comes to technology, other than your actual like a good cutting board and a good knife. But blender is something that professionally, if I had to look around my kitchen and choose 3 things I couldn't, live without, a blender would be, number 1 or 2 for me. Now, food processor, you can do this in a food processor. It's not, if you prefer something that's thinner or more emulsified, it's not going to get you exactly what you want. If you were going to go out and purchase just one or the other, stick with a blender, because you can do it basically everything you can in a food processor and so much more. Rather than a food processor, you're kind of limited to one thing, and it's not going to do the things that a blender can do. So right now we're going to add, in traditional pesto, they use pine nuts. Now pine nuts are expensive, and there's a lot of nut allergies in the world. So what I like to do is I like to use toasted sunflower seeds instead of the pine nuts, and that's just going to give it a little bit of a body and really provide a nice lightness to go with the carrot tops as well. It's not going to overpower it. And so I added some of the sunflower seeds. Now I'm just going to season a little bit. So here's a little bit of sherry vinegar, and I'm adding sherry vinegar because as you look at things in components, you have fat and acid. We have the fat in the form of the neutral oil, which I used grapeseed oil for. And now I'm looking for an acid. So sherry vinegar, you can also use a little bit of apple cider vinegar, really any kind of vinegar you want. Sherry vinegar, I find, adds a little bit of that depth that I'm looking for. And then on top of that, I'm going to add a little bit of shoyu as well. Shoyu is Japanese specific soy sauce. And that's going to add a little bit of the umami that I'm looking for as well, a little bit of that pop. Soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, those are all things I love to season with.
Someone wanted to know, in terms of good knives and cutting boards for home use, is there a favorite that one should go towards?
I'm sorry, you said a
Knives and cutting boards. Like,
Knives and cutting
are
boards.
there certain ones that you think are superior?
That's a great question. Give me one moment. So right now I haven't added salt or pepper to it. I'm just balancing out fat and acid. So I'm just going to add a little bit more acid to it because I'm looking for a little bit more pop. And then I'm going to season it up and we'll be ready to rock. In terms of cutting boards, invest heavier the better. I know, I've recommended heavier products to people such as, the cast iron and things like that. And their response is, oh yeah, you got to schlep it here to there and things like that. Everything in life has its pros and cons. And in terms of investing in a good heavy cutting board, that's your square one. I've been to, especially like my father's house, he's been notoriously bad at it. I get there and all he has is, these small flimsy cutting boards and, flimsy Faberware, Walmart, kind of knives. It's just like night and day. I'm looking for something that I can really move around on. I can really, work my station. I can do something here, push it to the side, have things there, as long as you're not cross-contaminating or anything like that. A heavy cutting board. And I would, check out Amazon. I did purchase one from Amazon, I'd say about a year ago, and it was great. It was recommended and everything like that. The Booze Block is a wooden cutting board. It's a very popular one. It's a good product. It's a little bit, I think they might have changed their manufacturing a little bit. So it's a little bit less stable. I mean, I have one at my home. Don't get me wrong, it's a great cutting board. But it's all about how much you want to spend and things like that. But Amazon is something I would look for. And in terms of wood versus synthetic, at home, I really enjoy working with wood because I have more time to take care of it. I have to oil it every now and then. I've gotten wood in professionally, and it can't take the abuse. Unfortunately, it takes a lot more love and care to take care of. So I stick with strictly synthetic, and also in terms of cross contamination, things like that. We buy what's called NSF certified, which ensures that, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my spatula. It ensures that it's not susceptible to, pathogens and things like that. You can get NSF certified wood cutting boards, but I found the same thing, that they just don't hold up, unfortunately.
Someone mentioned that the sunflower seeds, were they unsalted? And I was wondering, in general, you have a choice between a salted and unsalted ingredient. Do you prefer to add your own salt separately?
That's a great question. If I'm using them in cooking, a lot of times I will buy unsalted. However, butter is something that I prefer to cook with salted butter. And you just have to be aware of that as you start cooking entire meals from scratch and things like that. A lot of times you're going to salt throughout the cooking process, not just once. Because in outside of just flavor, salt does a lot of things for food in terms of drawing moisture out of it, for curing it, preserving it, things like that. But it doesn't really matter, just as long as you're aware of it and you're tasting as you go along. If you are going to use salted sunflower seeds, you're not going to use enough that you wouldn't salt your food again. You're just going to taste it before you salt it and say, okay, I just need less salt than if I were to use unsalted.
I know that fresh grated pepper is better because it's stronger. Is there any advantage to grating the salt, or not? No advantage whatsoever?
Not necessarily, no. So when I cook, especially with salt, I use two different predominantly. The first is going to be the kosher salt. Crystal brand is phenomenal. You know, like Morton's just doesn't do it justice. The grind on the salt is very, very important. So as you can see, this is going to be finer, but it's not going to be like iodized salt. I haven't found a salt equivalent to it in terms of it's just perfect. Crystal salt. And then I also finish a lot of dishes with Maldon salt or flaky salt. And there's doesn't need to be Maldon specific to the region. There's a lot of different flaky salts that are just great for finishing as well. All right, so let's see what we have over here as we finish up this dish, our mise en place. So we have our carrots, which we're going to grill in just a moment. We have our sauce, which you know, carrot top pesto. And then as we finish this dish, we have our nice and creamy sheep's milk feta. We have our garnish, which we'll get into, and we have a little bit of the reserved carrot tops that I didn't throw in the pesto to garnish the dish with. So I'm going to just mark off these carrots a little bit if they come with me.
I've never heard of flaky salt. What does it do differently?
Pardon me? Oh, the flakiness of the salt?
Yeah, what does that do for the dish?
So the flakiness is going to add a little bit more texture. It's also going to basically concentrate it. So when you get a bite and you get that burst of flaky saltiness and a little bit of that crunch, it really is just a different experience than if I were to just, you know, put a little kosher salt on top of a dish. I would never just add salt on top of a dish to send out in terms of like kosher salt or you know, things like that. The finishing touch of fleur de sel or Maldon just provides that finishing touch, and I know I keep saying pop a lot, but that's, I guess, the best way to describe it. You know, how I cook. I'm always tasting things to make it pop, and pop usually comes in the form of acidity and salt, and it's just balancing those two with, you know, the fattiness or richness of the dish. So I have my carrots that I've blanched. And again, for those of you just joining, blanch is, you know, we just have a pot of water on. We always salt the water as well. You know, dunk it in for, depending on the size of the carrots, you're cooking them, as they say, al dente, which is kind of hard cooked. And then immediately putting them in ice bath water to shock it and stop the cooking.
So we're getting to, it's around like 1 minute to 3. And
Yep.
I was just wondering, you know, if your general manager would like to say a couple words while you're also cooking, you know, that's too.
Sounds great. Let me help these head sounds out. Mike, they just asked if you'd like to take the opportunity to talk a little about the wines that I'm cooking.
Mr. Rohrbach, he told me that he's worked many different places, and he started around the time that that Alex began. And one of his places was a small Italian restaurant and grounds for sculpture. And
how do we switch this around?
Let's see. Hi, welcome.
Thank you for joining us again.
And I know you're gonna show us
Michael. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I said, I know you're going to show us about the wine collection there.
Yes, yeah. So we have a pretty significant and extensive wine list. We're always trying to improve and bring on new and exciting things. So in addition to some of the things that we've had, we've added some great wines that really complement chef's food. So what he was talking about with the pop of his flavors, the salt and the acidity that really come through in a lot of his dishes. We want something that's going to complement that as well. So typically there's two ways you can pair things. You can pair things with contrasting flavors. So like sweet to salty, or sweet to, I wouldn't say spicy, salty, savory, things like that. So his food has a lot of acid. So I like old world wines for that reason. So Italy, Spain, France, they all kind of, they're designed to be food friendly wines, where, you know, some of those California wines are, in my opinion, meant to be enjoyed around a table with a group of friends over a great conversation, but not necessarily with, especially chef's food, which is just a treat. So this afternoon I had a few different wines. So see if we can see these here. So I have a 2017 Alain Gras white Burgundy. So Burgundy is the region where Pinot Noir and the white grape Chardonnay come from. Absolutely delicious. This one doesn't have as much as what some people would say would be like a big oak bomb. So it uses some new French oak, but majority used French oak. So you'll have that little rounded, kind of like butterscotch, toffee kind of vibe, but it's not over the top with the oak. It'll really balance out a lot of chef's foods, especially some of the salads, the cauliflower that would go together like peanut butter and jelly. The next two, we're going to go back to Burgundy because favorite region. We have a Sauvignon from the Beaune. So two different regions in Burgundy. This is the lower portion of that. So you have the Côte de Nuit in the north, and then the Côte de Beaune in the south, running along a beautiful ridgeline. This tart cherry, medium body, again, bright acidity. The tartare that chef has, he does with a little bit of lime zest, as well as shallots and maitake mushrooms over top, which is so unique and beautiful. I could eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with this wine.
I wish you could put it through the computer to all of us. It would be wonderful. It sounds great.
You know, so often we look at all the things that are going on in the world, but you have a second to step back and look at all the amazing things we do have. We have the pleasure of enjoying great food from chef and some beautiful wine that people work day in and day out for. So, you know, we're all more blessed than some of us know. So thankful for that. And then last but not least, I have a 2012 Reserve Rioja from La Charga. Absolutely divine. It's a family vineyard. This one's going to be a little more austere. It'll have a little more tannin. So tannin is part of a wine that a lot of people misconstrue. Tannin's not a taste. It's not body. It's more of a tactile feel. It's kind of that thing that grips your mouth and wraps around your teeth, and kind of like little gloves on your teeth. So this has that. Again, that bright acidity, but some really nice earth tones. So steak, even some heavier fish. If you want to do like Chilean sea bass, it would impart really well, or a spiced tuna, like a peppercorn crusted tuna, blow you out of the water. So there are a few of the wines that we chose to feature, again, with chef's food. When you come and join us, I highly recommend asking about our Spanish selection, as well as, of course, Burgundy. And hopefully you'll join us for the Valentine's Day weekend. We have a wonderful 3-course menu Chef has come up with, and I heard, but don't hold me to it, he has a surprise for a 4th course that he's not telling anyone about. So you heard it here first. Hopefully you'll join us then.
That's
all right.
And they've mentioned about curbside, the desire to 1, 2, 3, 4 people if you're alone in your house. Like, I don't know, like the availability, but we're very happy for whatever you supply that way.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. Thank you. We are providing curbside pickup. You can call the hotel. We'd be more than happy to run through the menu with you. It is also located on our website. And we have timed pickups so that we have a nice flow of service in the parking lot as well for you, and you're not waiting around.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of Rioja, so I'm glad you included that in your in your presentation there.
Thank you. It's honestly one of the regions that I'm learning a lot about now. My favorite region previous to working with Chef was actually Italy, which I think is the second best one for chef food. But pound for pound, in my opinion, Rioja and Los Angeles, great, plays well with a lot of the dishes. So highly recommend.
Okay.
Well, I think
All
we
right,
got it back.
Let's steal the
Thank
mic
you
back.
so much. Thank you for that
Next
insight. I
dish.
appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
All right, so we're just gonna finish this dish. And we have our carrots over here, which have a nice, I love the nice little char that you get on the outside. And they're gorgeous. So we're just going to put them in a bowl and lightly dress them with the carrot top pesto. And we're just going to be gentle, toss them such.
It looks beautiful.
All right, the colors.
It's very interesting what you were saying about the different kinds of herbs, about the ones that are more basic and the ones that are add the extra flavor.
If there's three things outside of my encouragement for you all to try and cook things and fail things and not be discouraged and get out there and learn. It's the way you look at food, the way you get your flavors from and stuff like that. It's herbs, spices, and aromatics, and they're all interchangeable. And as long as you do those and balance the fat and acid, that's really the way I look at food. And it's the template. It's basically the template of all cuisine, all dishes.
So Alex, in general, we've been mailing our food related Zoom participants recipes. So maybe you could send it to me at some point and I will forward it to everyone. And then if they come in, they'll let you know that they were here today.
Absolutely.
It's so wonderful that you're able to take the.
Pardon me? Wait, I lost it there for a sec.
I was saying that when you are doing this, it's wonderful that you're running your kitchen and you're able to take this time and create this 6-foot space around you to not have your mask on and to be able to accommodate us today. I know how busy your kitchen is.
Absolutely. Well, you sent the snow, so for that, I thank you. You there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, so we're just going to finish this dish off. So I have some puff grains and seeds. In terms of puff grains, I have very simply Rice Krispies. It sounds kind of silly, but to me, food should be fun first and foremost. And the Rice Krispies really give it a nice little crunch and pop. Now, sometimes I will puff my own grains and seeds, which is a matter of just cooking the rice, basically overcooking it, separating it and drying it out, dehydrating it, and then frying it and it kind of puffs up. And you can do that with rice or any other grain such as farro or emmer berries, things like that. And the seeds that we're using is some poppy seeds, sesame seeds. We're layering the dish with the sunflower seeds as well, and some caraway. And we're just going to really put what seems like a lot on, and that's going to give it a lot of texture.
It looks
Kind of
gorgeous.
sprinkled around the plate.
Someone is asking what the difference is between blanching and searing versus roasting the vegetables.
Absolutely. So again, for those of you who missed it or something like that, or I repeat myself a lot in cooking, but there's no template. I could make this dish, this exact same dish, I can make 10 different ways with all different variables, and there is no right or wrong. It's just a matter of, what do you want to do with it? What story are you trying to tell? What flavor profile do you enjoy? That's the beautiful thing, is that each dish is, you can make the same thing, but if you roast the carrots, it's going to completely change the texture and flavor of the carrots. I think that by blanching and searing, I have a little bit more control over the texture in terms of getting a nice crispy outside while maintaining the al dente or texture of the inside. Roasting, I think, is a little bit more at the mercy of the oven. But that being said, don't be discouraged from roasting. I roast plenty of things, if that's the way I'm feeling that day.
It looks beautiful. As we're mindful of everyone's time, we're coming to a close on this Zoom. I was wondering if there's any like favorite cooking comments you'd love to leave us with.
Great question. Experiment. Experiment. Don't think that there's only one way to do something. There's a million different ways, and there's plenty of times that I've done something and messed up on it, and it ended up being phenomenal. And I learned something new. Don't be that cook that just copies recipes. When you read a recipe, take more note of the components. As you're reading that recipe, be like, okay, that's an acidic note, that's a fat note, that's a spice note, and understand, think in your head, hey, what if I switch that? What if I did cilantro instead of carrot top? What if I did, caraway instead of, chili flake or something like that? To take note of the components, and once you learn the components of cooking, the whole world is wide open. That's my advice.
It's wonderful advice, Alex. We so appreciate that you took this time, and it's a lot of effort for you, and it's just gorgeous. And we all wish you the best with your time at the Perch and Peacock Inn. And I thank the committee for allowing us to bring Alex to the Jewish Center. It's a wonderful committee, and a shout out to all Helene and Lynn, who work so hard to bring us all this amazing Zoom programming. I'm on the committee, but they really do. And at the synagogue, the powers that be that bring this great stuff to all the members. It's a real blessing in this time of the pandemic. And Alex, you've brightened our day, and you cook with a lot of heart, and it really shows.
Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to talk to any of you anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Everyone take care. Enjoy being warm.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much. It's great.
Nice going.
Thanks, Alex. We love you.
Bravo, Alex.
Bravo, Ms. Nick.
Yeah, well done, well done.
All right, John, we can leave. And come.
You see, a nice Jewish boy can be a cook too,
We got two of them.
right?
Come leave.